1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Codi. This one's a little bit different as we are in a different setting. As we are here at Smith Music with Paul Smith.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
So you're someone who's normally behind the scenes.
Yep.
A lot of the time. But for those who don't know you, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I own Smith Music. We're in Morinville, Alberta, which is just north of St. Albert. And we basically do three things. So we do private music instruction of basically most instruments between myself and my staff. But we also teach things like recording and career training. And so there's the teaching side, and then we do event production. So like we met at Rainmaker, where I was in charge of the production and the backstage and all of that kind of thing.
For sure.
And then also live events. So I do performing and some promoting and that kind of thing. So those are kind of really the three things that we do.
Awesome. And so that's all just Smith Music. Anything else?
All under Smith Music. And then,
Perfect.
You know, being an entrepreneur, there is other things that come along the way, but those are the main three things.
Awesome. All right. Tell us what your experience is like within the industry.
Yeah, so I've been teaching this is our 21st year in business.
Wow.
For us. So I'm not that old. I'm 43 years old. So we've been at it a while. But I started teaching when I was 12. I was always interested in music. I took piano lessons when I was 4. My mother was the church organist.
Wow.
And so it was super inspiring. I was always there for the band practices, and then played at church. And then when I got to be a teenager, I started bringing out the Guns N' Roses and all the different stuff like that. And I did my first, professional bar gig when I was 14 with special permission from, it was the Ontario Liquor Control Board at the time.
Nice.
And then I toured for a couple of years, and I figured out that touring isn't really in my DNA. It's not, I do love to perform live, but being away from home for long periods of time, those kinds of things, it's just not really who I am. But I loved teaching. A lot of artists will teach because it pays the bills, and then they'll perform because they want to. I love teaching just as much as I love performing. So that's been kind of the way that let me be at home like I wanted to be, and I still get to perform when I want to.
Awesome. And I having you on this show, I really wanted you on because you work with some bigger names in the industry sometimes. What's it like working with some of the bigger names?
It's so I consider I work with mid-stars. So I'm not working with Beyonce, not superstars,
of course, for sure.
But some great notable, particularly Canadian acts. And it's kind of the same as working with anybody, and there are definitely some differences. So the differences mainly are that I need to have people around me that aren't starstruck, where they can understand that the person is there. It's a high pressure environment where they know everybody's looking at them. And so that when they're backstage, they can just feel like it's their own little world, right? It's their home away from home, where they're going to be treated with respect. For a lot of people at this level, there isn't as much respect backstage as you might think. And so I've really worked to create a professional environment and an environment where we pay particular attention to hospitality, that they get treated really good. So as an example, it's pretty common backstage for artists to have, they'll have food, meat and cheese trays and that kind of thing. And there's the joke in the industry that they get fed the sweaty cheese that's been sitting out for 3 or 4 hours,
For
right?
Sure. Yep.
So it's the little things, like I have a great hospitality crew, like at Rainmaker. These gals, they have their food safe. So when the artists get there, food comes out. When they leave to go sound check on stage, it goes back in the fridge so you don't get sweaty cheese.
Of course.
Simple stuff, right?
For sure.
So it's realizing that those things are important. And then there's a different level of professionalism when you're talking to a front of house person or a tour manager that's used to mixing at a big level and they need things to sound great. And that's really happens a lot in advance. So at local shows, it happens 10 minutes before. With a bigger artist, it happens months before.
Right. Nice. Are you able to give, say some of the names you've worked with?
Yeah. So, like some of the Rainmaker names, it is terrible. I have a hard time remembering when I'm asked on the spot. Like, well, this year there was Aaron Pritchett. It was lovely.
Yep.
And Jess Moskaluk.
Yep.
We've had George Canyon there. And then for some of the rock guys, we had Widemouth Mason and Big Sugar. And I'm leaving out a whole bunch. Then there's some of the classic rock bands like Loverboy and Nick Gilder, who's now singing for Streetheart, as I understand it. Nick Gilder did like Roxy Roller and all of those songs.
For sure.
So kind of a whole bunch of bands in about that level.
Awesome. Do you have any stories, like any behind the scenes stories that you're allowed to share?
Yeah, actually, well, you and I had done an interview for me on my channel, which I thank you for, and you had brought up Brett Kissel, who's a lovely guy, and one of the things I always tell people is when you're working with somebody, know who they are before they get there. Well, this is where I made the rookie mistake, and I didn't have a great, I didn't look at a picture of him before so that I knew who he was, and so they were doing a bunch of promotional video stuff for Brett around Rainmaker when he was there. And I'm in, high pressure mode, trying to keep Backstage organized and do a whole bunch of things. And I walk into, we have kind of a common area where all the openers are. And then there's the Bill Hyatt room that's for the headline.
Right.
So I walk into the common area and I see what looks like a pretty young guy. He's got a hockey stick and there's another couple people there. And there's a bunch of people gathered around him. And I walk in and my reaction is, what are you guys doing in my dressing room? And this needs to stop. The hockey in my dressing room, are you kidding me? And everybody just froze and stopped. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? What are you doing here and who are you? And somebody else said, that's Brett Kissel. I was like, okay. Hey, Brett. I'm Paul. Yeah. Nice to meet you. And he was awesome, and him and I had a good laugh over it. And I mean, he was super cool. But it's one of the things that you really don't want to do.
That's pretty funny.
And I put my foot in my mouth pretty big there.
Awesome. That's funny. He probably won't forget that moment.
No, and he was like, we're not trying to disrespect. And when I figured out what was going on, I'm like, cool, totally. Shoot the video. I came in and I didn't know what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Right? It was one of those things.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so you've created, like we were talking about, your own channel.
Yes.
What is your channel's name?
So it's Smith Music, and we do, it's about fundamentally building careers for musicians, and as part of that, gear reviews to know what gear is good for musicians, I just went blank. Gear reviews, and the showing inside the studio and backstage. So we have footage of Rainmaker. Backstage, we actually did the whole Friday where I had somebody filming so that I can show you what it's actually like working with some of these artists backstage.
That's awesome. And that's the stuff I really enjoy, because that's stuff that people don't get to see.
Yeah, it really is.
Right?
Yeah,
they only see the front when they perform, and that is it.
Yeah, and I got a bunch of footage collected of in the studio too. So where you're doing the guitar solo take, like take number 50 instead of take number 1, because it's sometimes it's take number 1, but that's very rare.
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. What made you decide to start this channel?
Yeah, it's been kind of a process. I look at things, pretty selfishly from my own perspective of what did I want to do and what did I need, especially this is kind of aimed at I'm going to say teens, but it's also other people that are, as they're getting themselves established when they're working and they want to go back into doing some music stuff, of how do you build a career.
Right.
And when I was coming up, there wasn't places to find out what is the music business actually like. Right, not the stuff that you hear. I was asking when I was like 13 and 14, other like adult musicians, what's it like? And it mostly was, well, you'll never make any money and you'll probably not stay married. That was the two things that I heard.
For sure.
And there is a lot of that.
Yep.
But there's a whole other side. And now that we're in the vlogging era, it's a great time to see more the day-to-day and the mentality of people that are successful. So that was kind of the driving force. And then the other thing is that, I feel like I've been successful by being able to earn a living in music. And for me, being able to build a social media following, it's like trying to make it in music all over again. I really want to prove to myself I can do it again.
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. yeah, I like it. I wanted you on here just because like you're always behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Right. And I wanted to show people more of behind the scenes stuff as well.
Right.
Right. So it's great having you on here. Because then they can see that, because they see the artists all the time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what they normally see. But I want to bring them behind.
Yeah.
And have
So
them
like,
see it all.
yeah, like if you're in a show like Rainmaker, you see, 4 musicians on stage.
Yeah.
But what you don't see is like, 6 to 9 tech guys behind them that you don't see, and then a whole other crew of volunteers doing hospitality and all the things that go in behind that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, man. Last thing. I know we said your YouTube channel, Smith Music, but
Yep.
tell them where else we can find you.
So YouTube and then Facebook, Smith Music, on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm a pretty fresh guy that's learning all about social media. So I have pretty small numbers, but I'm trying to do some things that are a little bit different. And so I'd appreciate any follows and likes and all of those kinds of things.
Awesome. Well, Paul, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks
for
so
coming
much.
on. Make sure you guys go check out Paul. All his links will be in the description below. He's got some pretty cool stuff, gear reviews, behind the scenes stuff. So make sure you go check him out, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.